We'll call this meeting to order at 6:33. No, Steve, I can't hear you. The only way we can hear you is if you unmute your mic. I got a chat from him. All right. So first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next up is agenda review. Any amendments or we'll run this meeting like we have in the past. If you can, mute your mics when you're not presenting. If you want to ask a question or present or say anything, just raise your hand. If I don't happen to see you, feel free to write something on the chat, and if somebody else sees it, point it out to me. I'm not shy. So other than that, I don't have any agenda reviews unless Julie does.
I don't think so. We did update the agenda to discuss a side letter, and that was posted. But beyond that, I think everything will fit under the current agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Next up then is consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 5th.
I can make that motion.
Terry's first, second.
I can second.
Megan's a second. Any discussion?
There's an error in one of the, I think it's where the minutes were approved. Look at the motion. I think it was maybe Terry and Megan. I looked at it earlier today, but look at I don't think it says board. If somebody can bring them up. I don't think it says bad either, but it looks like a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo. I'll fix that.
Okay, Pierrette?
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, go ahead and raise your hand. Opposed? Looks like motion carries 9-0. Next up is a presentation from our elementary administration.
So we've written reports, and I'm wondering which principal wants to start with highlights. I'm looking at Dina right in the middle of the screen.
So I think highlights, all I want to say is that during this time, our central office staff and Julie's leadership has been amazing. I think as a board, you should be very proud of all of your teachers. I don't think teachers are working harder. I mean, I always thought they worked hard. They're working incredibly hard right now and are really, really committed to this. A huge thank you to Kosha as well. Joan Lumbra, who is retiring, and it's a really hard way to go out. Both she and Debbie, our coaches, are leading this work beautifully. And without that leadership, it would be tough too. I think our parents and our students are really responding as best that they can. And I just want to, it's more just words of gratitude. And Justina and I think, I don't know, we're just amazed at it, and we're very, very proud of all of them. So I think that's really it for highlights. The teachers are really stepping up. There's a few kids and families that we haven't heard from, and that's sad, but we're reaching out as best we can. And I don't know, I'm just really, really proud of the teamwork, and people working together. So that's really my highlight. As we're trying, every time we feel like we kind of got it under control, something else comes, as I know it does at the board level and with Julie. But so we're not kind of just sitting around. We haven't really had just like a plateau. I'm sure all the principals feel that way. It's like, okay, we got this. And for one day, it's kind of like, yeah, we're rocking it. And then the next day, it's like, no, let's get ready for this, or let's change this. So, we're working on summer now, and we are working on the next school year. So there's always thinking ahead. But so thank you for your support too.
Thank you.
I'm just looking to see who is here. Joyce? I don't see Pat or Chris yet.
I'll go. I'm good. I just want to say first how great it is to see everybody again. It seems like it's been forever since we've seen you. And I actually kind of, first I do want to say I agree with everything what Dina said about central office. The teamwork from central office has been so great and so supportive. I also want to include the whole tech team. Everything we had to do at the beginning of this with technology and still are, they've just been an incredible support to everybody and at all times of day and night to answer questions. I actually just want to start with talking about a couple of highlights from March. And I have to say, I've tried really hard to keep my report short when I've been at these board meetings, and this time I'm going to talk a little bit more. I do want to go back to March because I feel like our sixth graders are kind of losing out on a lot this year. And I was so happy that we were able to have the annual senior dinner before school was dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
And they just did an incredible job. It's an afternoon of lunch and entertainment, and the entire gym, whole school effort has been decorated. This year it was safari through Africa. And the kids, every class does such a wonderful job, but this class really put even extra time into it. We had a snow day, I forget when it was, before the dinner happened. One sixth grader came into school with her parents to pick up her piece of art at the snow day. They were just so into this whole thing. And we had 70 seniors come that day. And I just didn't want it to go by without acknowledging it. And we had hoped that in April, when we had the board meeting in Franklin in April, we were going to still have it all there for you and have some kids come and some, but anyway, maybe next year for that. But I just didn't want to not recognize that work that they, and especially Nancy Wilson and the whole school did. I also wanted to highlight one other thing prior to the school dismissal, and that was a dinner at the VFW in Swanton, where Heather Digby was honored as the National Citizenship Education Teacher of the Year by their post. And that's an award that they do annually, recognizing teachers who promote civic responsibility, flag etiquette, patriotism, and foster the development of those democratic values. So I was really happy for Heather. And that same night, two Franklin sixth graders again were honored for first and second place in the Patriots pen writing contest. And so I just wanted to acknowledge those things, and also the VFW for doing those. Not every post is as active as that. And the VFW helps us so much with our Veterans Day celebrations. They make food baskets for families at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so I just wanted to recognize them. As far as what's been going on, recently, I totally agree with Dina just in terms of how being so proud of everybody. And a couple of specific things I just want to mention is the first few weeks, I think everything was really difficult. Teachers, it was like the first few weeks of school, and everything was exactly like the first few weeks of school and all that you have to do, except that it was in a whole new environment and using all different tools. And so that was really hard. And the biggest message we wanted parents to get was, please call us. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't get frustrated. We don't want you to have to be the teacher. And that was our biggest message. And now, a few weeks, just a few weeks, even though it seems like it's been years practically, the beginning questions were about the routines and, getting all the communication structure set up, and teachers made themselves available for whenever parents would be available, night or day. And the questions in the beginning were just about routines. Then the questions became about the technology a little bit more. And now the questions that we're having are really about the content and much deeper questions. And parents and kids are really accessing teachers. Just gotten so much more comfortable and really hearing that message that we don't want them to have to be the teacher. Just today at our faculty meeting, one of the teachers was sharing that she had a student who that called her because they wanted to tell her they weren't going to be there at the regular time. They had to go someplace with their mother and wanted her to have their mother's cell phone number so that they could still talk at their appointed time. And, we were like, yay, that's what we've been wanting. So, and then since after the break, we started the new learning. And again, to echo what Dina was saying, people are working unbelievably hard. I overheard somebody in a store the other day saying something about, well, teachers weren't working. And I really wanted to stop and accost this stranger because people are working harder than ever. And when we came back from break, we started with the recorded teacher videos, them doing their own recordings. I asked teachers to share some of those with me. I didn't know what to expect. All of this was new to them, recording themselves. And I cannot tell you how impressed I was. I was like, wow, it was like watching like a professional, like, who does this all the time, making their own videos. And then also the online conferencing, and we've just been getting a lot of positive feedback around those things. And if I was a parent, I would just be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what these teachers are doing. And we've been getting feedback in all kinds of ways, journal prompts, exit tickets, on the phone, assignments. We have pickup night every other Friday, and that has just helped. I don't know about anybody else, but that has helped get me through this, knowing that we're going to see our families, every family, every other Friday. We have 85 families, and every pickup night, we have had over 80 families come. A couple of families each time haven't been able to come, not the same two, and they've come by Monday or Tuesday the following week. We've made arrangements, and they've come that following week. So to be able to see those parents and check in personally and know how they're feeling about what's happening. So the thing that I want to say is that I know I'm talking a lot tonight, but I just got it all stored up. But I am, like Dina said, so proud of our teachers, our kids, our parents, just all of our staff. And the thing that I just want to say is about the teamwork, because the food distribution, I cannot say enough about the people driving the buses, the people riding the buses, the people making the food, packing the food. This is a small cafeteria and a small staff. And I think as of yesterday, they have done 14,000 meals. And it has just been incredible teamwork. So the food, the teamwork amongst the staff, I am inspired every time we have a faculty meeting to listen to them share what they're doing and how it's working. So when they started recording their lessons, they didn't try to say, oh, this is great. We talk about, well, what worked well in your lesson? And they would talk about, well, the sound wasn't great, or the image was reversed, and just sharing all the pitfalls and learning from each other. The same thing with the online conferencing. Well, I started with this group, but I should have done more expectations ahead of time, because one kid was laying on his bed while we were doing it. And, just all kinds of things that they learn from each other, and just so honest and collaborating so much. So, and the teamwork just for the pickup night, with Paris helping out to prepare materials, Paris calling and asking what they can do at home. Can they cut things out at home? What can they do to help? And, the people who have volunteered to come 3 to 7 every other Friday night. And I'll tell you, we are finally having some good weather this Friday night, because the last time, I don't think I thawed out for 2 days. It was so cold. And those people have been here every other Friday night to do that. And obviously the teamwork with the parents and the kids. And like I said, they've been coming to all those pickup drop-off nights. They're calling. I mean, the support has just been incredible. And I said in the beginning, we would do everything we could to offer the best education we could under these circumstances. And that's what we're doing. And it's not the education they'd have, obviously, in this building and everybody else's building, but it's the best we can under these circumstances. And it's, as I've always said, kids are going to learn best when there's a true partnership with home and school. And we've never needed that partnership more than right now. And I've never seen it more than right now. And I'm just so proud of everybody. And I just am so grateful for all of those things. And I just so appreciate everybody and what everybody's done and continue to do. In the midst of all those things, we finished the PTO cookie dough fundraiser. We had transition meetings with 7th grade. And now we're in the midst of, planning for graduation and summer tutoring. And so I'm sorry to be long-winded tonight, but I wanted to give some background and I'm so darn proud of everybody. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you hear munching going on, it's because I have 2 dogs here munching on bones at my feet. So I'll shut my mic off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, I know that I did text Pat, so I'm not sure what is happening, but you have his report. One of the things I know he would want to highlight is that they had a Highgate learning parade, and it was, I know, Chris, you mentioned it to me this morning, and then since that this morning, I've heard from at least 3 different people about how much it meant to the kids. They had, I'm going to say the hawk's name incorrectly. Is it Hawthorne the hawk? And he had a mask on, and the kids thought that was funny. And Craig had him in the convertible, so all the kids could see him waving. Marshall and Colette organized the routes, and it was led by the bus company. And it was just a terrific experience. And so many cars came out and followed the parade, and teachers and signs. And it was just, the art department was involved. It was terrific. And a great way to sort of have spirit in Highgate during this time.
Yeah. Numbers I heard, they had 4 buses and 40 cars going around the 3 different loops.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Yep. So it was terrific.
Okay. Any questions on the elementary administration updates? Peter.
I would just like to echo Joyce's comments. I'm really impressed, and I'm sure all the schools have the same dedication, but I brought Ben over to play basketball on the court on Friday night after 6 o'clock, and to see Joyce and the staff there working late on a Friday night to make sure all the parents are getting the supplies and necessities that they need. I just think it's amazing dedication, and I salute all of them for the dedication they're putting in this time. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been tremendous. The principals have done a wonderful job at giving shout outs to all of their teachers and staff, and that is very well deserved, of course. But just as the teachers have been redesigning the plane while flying it and figuring out how to teach in a whole new way, the principals have been leading the teachers through this tumultuous time, answering questions from parents, being available at any time, running food service, making sure everything runs like clockwork, answering the phone, sitting on the floor with a mask, as I generally see Justina doing, sorting teacher appreciation bags while food service is going on. They've just been above and beyond, every single one. And I can't say how pleased I am to be part of this school community and work with such dedicated leaders.
I would iterate that to our entire staff, including Julie and everybody at central office and their principals and their teachers. As a parent of kids in 3 different levels of school, and then having the opportunity to have talked to other parents with kids in other schools and whatnot, I haven't heard one negative comment. So that's kudos to our entire staff. I'm so proud of everyone. Okay, so next on the agenda is new business, and it would be our continuous improvement plans with presentation from Kosha.
And before Kosha gets started, I just want to frame that every year the school board needs to approve the continuous improvement plan. Last year we were consolidating, and it was very much rushed, and the AOE said, here, you got to do it by next week, or that kind of deadline. And the board really wanted to make sure that they were seeing it ahead of time. So I hope that you were able to review it. I don't expect anyone to understand all of the educational jargon that is a plan like this. And hopefully Kosha is going to go through the purpose for the plan, how it's developed, why we choose the goals that we do, and how we use it.
All right. So I'm going to just start my slideshow. And here is our continuous improvement plan. We started working on it way back in February to try and get everything ready to submit to the Agency of Ed. And then everything changed in March. So the objective really today is to review the continuous improvement planning process, to review the continuous improvement plans for each of our schools as well as for the district, and then to get approval from you as a board to submit this to the Agency of Education. Every year, the district and each school has to submit a continuous improvement plan to the Agency of Education. And this plan process includes establishing a team of stakeholders, including school board members, administrators, teachers, parents, students, and community members. The plans are then approved and submitted to the Agency of Education in order to guide them in approving the spending of federal grant funds by the district. We have to always start our continuous improvement plan with a shared vision. And the vision we had this year was what we had worked on as a whole team based on our social emotional learning that we were working with this year. So you can see what the vision is. At MVSD, we acquire, practice, and apply academic and social emotional skills to develop ourselves and each other as engaged, responsible citizens. And the statement was written because we wanted to include everyone from preschool to adults who work in our district and have a common vision for all of us. So we had to this year submit what is called the data inventory tool. That was something new that the Agency of Ed added this year. And we had to collect data from every school as well as on a district level. And then we had to establish goals around two broad areas of focus. The first one is academic proficiency, and then the second one is safe and healthy schools, which includes all the social emotional learning. When we talk about continuous improvement, we are really setting goals for ourselves and thinking about what do we want to accomplish this year, and then what changes are we going to make that will result in the improvement, and then how are we going to know when a change is an improvement? What measures are we going to use to evaluate the success or lack of success of some changes? This year in our MVSD CIP, our goal for academic proficiency, we had to really modify it based on school closure, and we put in a majority of students will maintain their achievement in literacy and math, And since we don't have any standardized assessments from the state, we are going to be using our local assessments to determine that maintenance of learning. That is going to be our challenge for this year. And our second goal is safe and healthy schools, where 100% of teachers will become familiar with the pre-K through 12 social emotional learning competencies. So just to give you a little bit of background, a team from MVSD, including administrators, teachers, and central office staff, have been working together with a consultant to develop our pre-K through 12 and adulthood social emotional learning competencies. And we are going to really roll that out in August during in-service so that everybody is familiar with those. The plan, like I mentioned before, also includes identifying what changes we want to make, how we're going to measure them. And these really guide the development of school and district initiatives around student support, professional development, and assessment tools. I hope you had a chance to review the MVSD continuous improvement plan, as well as the individual plans for Swanton, Highgate, Franklin, and MVU. And as you might have noticed, they're very similar because we do function as a district, but we also customize each of the plans to meet the needs of each school. So for example, in Swanton, they've really been focusing on trauma-informed practices. They've also, in their math and literacy this year, they really focused on math menu and getting solid with the practice of math menu. At Highgate, they've been working on restorative circles and using that to deal with student social emotional learning. At Franklin, this year, they've been part of the Stern Center's literacy initiative in both Franklin and Highgate. And for the current year, based on what we are seeing students are really struggling with during remote learning, the focus is going to be on executive functioning skills. These are the skills which are non-academic skills that really are necessary before students can be successful academically. And they involve things like managing emotions, self-management, organizational abilities, all those kind of things. And then at MVU, we've had a lot of different initiatives in literacy, math, science, and we've had developmental designs going on for classroom behavior management and collaborative problem solving. So you can see, even though the plans look very similar, the customization happens at the building level in terms of what the data is showing students need, and then what the initiatives are in each building. The relationship between continuous improvement and the Consolidated Federal Grant is, once we submit our continuous improvement plans, the next step is to send in to apply for our Consolidated Federal Program Grant. And the way the AOE makes decisions about whether they would approve funding for certain strategies we put in is they link it to the continuous improvement plan and also to the data that was submitted to see whether it makes sense for them to approve those funds that we are requesting. So they want to make sure that it's a reasonable request, it's necessary for progress, and that's how they make their decisions. And finally, our successes and challenges are that our continuous improvement plans really help us focus on specific areas that we want to work on for improvement. They help us secure the funding that we need. They help us to pilot new ideas and evaluate success on a small scale before we go into a larger scale or adopt it as school-wide or district-wide. They also help build coherence across the district and yet support the work of each individual school. This year, we are facing new challenges that our teachers and students, and we are giving them the very best tools we can to succeed. So that is basically the continuous improvement plan. And what I would love to do is to have you ask questions that you may have about something you saw when you were reviewing the plan, so that I can help clarify any of those questions you have.
I have a couple quick questions. One was, what's trauma? I don't remember trauma position, whatever. And then the executive functioning. I didn't know what those two things were.
Well, I'm going to have Dina talk to you about the trauma-informed practices, because they've been doing it for a couple of years in Swanton. Dina, do you want to just give a quick brief overview of your work?
Joelle Van Lent, who happens to be Dan's wife, has worked with us as an SU for at least 3 or 4 years now. She has done several keynotes for the entire staff, really about our staff becoming trauma informed, realizing that many of the kids that we are supporting come from a trauma background, from small to large. So her goal from the beginning has been really to inform our staff, to become more aware, to recognize signs. And then the next step, or the next phases, is her really trying to share strategies to support those students and families. So it was really starting with the whole SU at that time. She's done some workshops for our entire staff. She's done some paraprofessional workshops, and she kind of keeps going down to the smaller seed. For example, last year, she did some consulting with teachers around families who were experiencing trauma. So we were able to have her observe kids, and then the teachers from those families, those kids, came together with our guidance staff, and Joelle was able to share what she found from those observations, ask questions, and then to give us feedback, both to support the kids in our classroom settings, but to also support the families. So it's been a multi-year learning for our teachers. And that's something that we're hopeful to continue this year, because I think it's going to be even more important. So I feel like we've got a good foundation, but she is incredibly knowledgeable and has given us a lot. So that's the trauma informed. Coach, I'll let you talk about the executive function. Is that okay?
Actually, Joyce is here, so I'm going to have
Joyce go.
Joyce, can you tell the board a little bit about the executive functioning and why you chose that as one of your areas of focus for next year? Joyce, we can't hear you.
If you want, I can give a sort of working definition of executive functioning.
Yeah, we can't hear Joyce.
You may sometimes hear parents of high school students talk about how your frontal lobe isn't developed until you're 25. And that means that you aren't very good at organizing, planning, following through. We all think of our students who you say, could you please go get your math folder out of your cubby? And they go all around the barn and out of the classroom and then get lost somewhere before they get their math, and math is over by the time they pick it up. That really has to do with the ability to plan, to think spatially, to organize your thinking, to follow through and persevere. There are multiple approaches and definitions of the factors of executive functioning, but it really is those higher order thinking, the ability to focus, the ability to take the perspective of others, all of the things that make you able to regulate yourself in space, to think ahead and plan and carry out and execute things, as well as think about others and regulate your emotions. So it's a lot of the skills you need to be successful. When you think of high school kids who just make a decision and act at the drop of a hat, versus a student who's a little more skilled in that area and they can plan and delay their gratification. There's the occasional high school student that can do that. That's maybe the difference between students who have different levels of executive functioning. And Joyce, I think you're on now. You may want to speak to the teachers are looking for.
Yeah, the reason we decided on including that on our action plan is because the last couple of years, especially when we've been looking at kids who are, reading below grade level, and we're like, what do these kids have in common when we're trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to work on? What do we need to teach differently? Or what do we need to do? And more and more lately, it's been executive functioning skills. One of the big ones is working memory, being able to hold in your head what you've already learned as you're learning new things. And so we've talked about it enough, and we've had, some training, just really short, like maybe an hour workshop or something. And we decided that we just really wanted to focus even more on that this year because it really does seem to be an area of weakness for some of the kids that are struggling. And so we want to figure out how to help them have more strategies on how to improve that. And so we're hoping, we've got a guest speaker coming in August for in-service that I was so excited 2 of our teachers saw, and we're so excited. Ashley and Heather came back, Zoom, but they just were like, we have to have her come. And so I was so excited. I talked to Kosha and Julie knew the person and said it was the best person she'd ever heard on executive functioning skills. And so we're going to have that person in August. So we're excited about learning more about how to help our students with their executive functioning skills. So, but that's why we chose that, because we've really seen that as a much more common pattern with something that kids are struggling with. And we need to learn more about how to help them with that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
Peter.
Okay, I have a question on the slide where you have the goals, the academic proficiency and safe, healthy schools. On that goal 1, the academic proficiency, it says a majority of the students will maintain their achievement in literacy and math. I'm trying to understand it, and I appreciate your explaining that this goal is based on where we're at today as far as trying to learn from home and online. But I'm having a hard time, and correct me if I'm not understanding this right, but it seems like maintaining their achievement is basically maintaining what they know in literacy and math, and you're only asking for a majority. So it seems to me if you're setting a goal that almost half the people, students aren't even maintaining, it doesn't seem like, I just think we should have a higher goal than that. And I would just wonder if you could explain that.
Sure. So when we originally started writing the continuous improvement plan, we had said we would like to see a 5% increase in achievement in literacy, math, and science based on the state assessment. Then all the state assessments got canceled and we went into school closure. So we were told that we really don't have a measure next year to measure against this year. So when we decided to really focus on our local assessments, we chose math and literacy because we don't have any local assessments in science as of now. We also had to put some kind of numerical value. And when schools closed, we really had no idea how many of our students were going to be able to access learning. And we still can't put a percentage on how many kids are being able to access it. We don't want to penalize students because they couldn't access, because that's an equity issue. So if we say this child didn't make progress and, they didn't make progress, we don't know why they didn't make that progress. Was it because they didn't have access to technology? Was it that the parents lost their jobs and there was trauma going on? We don't know those reasons why. So to make it as realistic as possible, we said we want to maintain the learning from this year for a majority of our students, because it's really hard to put a number on, how many students we feel. We would ideally like to make sure that 100% of our students continue to improve, but just knowing that there are so many unknown factors, even about kids coming back in the fall, are we going to have another school closure in winter? Keeping all these in mind, we wanted to put a goal that was attainable by all our schools. And that's why we changed it, actually. We would have ideally liked to have that higher percentage. And it was in all our plans to have a 5% improvement. But at this current point, just like Dina has said, there are some kids at Swanton we haven't been able to reach at all. There are a handful of students at MVU. Since schools closed, we have no contact with them at all. And so we just put a majority. So we are trying to reach as many students as possible. And the reason we changed it to maintain is usually we see a loss over the summer. We see even kids who reached their end of grade level goals lose some of that learning over the summer. And then we have to use a month or two, sometimes in fall, just to get them back to where they were in May. Now, with the 6-month gap of students not being in schools at all, we don't know how long it's going to take us. We've also had to really streamline the curriculum for the last 7 weeks of school. So we haven't been able to do the amount of teaching in terms of content that we usually do. So keeping all those factors in mind, we changed our goal into the one that you see right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the chat, Tim just asked, are these just one-year plans?
Sorry. Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
it's a 1-year plan.
Yeah. Every year we have to submit a new continuous improvement plan, and then we have to come up with a way that we are going to measure that. And so every year we use what are called PDSA cycles, Plan, Do, Study, Act. So this is our goal, this is our plan, this is how we are going to measure it. And then at the end of the year, we evaluate whether we did make those changes and were those changes successful in improving student achievement, and then decide whether we want to adopt those, on a larger scale, or we say, oh, this didn't work, so we are going to change it and modify it for the following year. But they are submitted for every school year.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If there are no more questions, I would truly appreciate you giving your approval as a school board so that I can submit these to the Agency of Education.
So unless anybody has any more questions, at this time I'd entertain a motion to approve the presented CIP plans. Terry's the first. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Chris.
Devin's the second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of approving the CIP plans as presented, raise your hand. And against? I believe the motion carries 9-0.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for presenting. Next up on our agenda is old business. On to superintendent updates, graduation, and summer plans.
It's all we talk about now.
All right.
The past couple weeks. Graduation, I'm going to let Jay talk in just a minute, but we received guidance May 8th on graduation, and that guidance said all in-person activities have to have fewer than 10 students. Then we began to plan, and then we got more guidance that said people shouldn't get out of their cars, and there was no further interpretation of what that meant. So we were thinking that meant you couldn't have a group of people in a parking lot congregating. And then we just got guidance this week that was very specific, stating that parents cannot get out of the car, only graduates can get out of the car, that now I've got too many things open now, unfortunately. That the activities have to be very careful. You cannot hand anything to a graduate, has to be in a baggie, has to be placed so it can be picked up by a student. That, you know, it's very specific. All participants have to wear a mask, that everybody has to have strict social distance guidelines. And we have to be very careful we don't have any situation where anyone could be in a line or congregating in any way. So we have had, I think, 3 meetings at MVU with me and multiple more, I'm sure, at the school to make plans. We had an initial plan we were going to talk to you about, where people were going to actually come into the gym one at a time by appointment. I was on the phone yesterday afternoon with Dan French, who was very helpful, very specific, listened to every detail of the plan and said, you've got too many issues if you bring people in the building. If you bring someone in, if Devin and Justina come into the building, we then should be cleaning that space immediately before Joanne and Chris Palmer can walk into the building. So those kinds of things really made it too complicated. So our plan now is to have the graduation happen outdoors, and we have the okay from the Agency of Ed for that. So Jay, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the specifics.
No, I think you've pretty well covered it, Julie. Obviously, like everybody else in the state, we were waiting for the governor's press conference on May 8th. Given that information, school administration, Paul Gregoire, Debbie LaRose, who are intimately involved in the graduation program at the high school, met with Julie on Monday the 11th. Plan 1 was put into place. Letters were mailed home to students and their families on Friday. As they were receiving their letters yesterday on the 18th, Julie received the information from the Agency of Education that our plan was probably a little too dangerous, for lack of a better term, and so we needed to step back. We met this morning for probably 2 to 3 hours again with all the same people and Julie, and we came up with Plan 2.0, as Dan likes to refer to it. We think it's a good plan. It's going to be outdoors, obviously in Vermont. That means weather dependent, whether that be rain, snow, or perhaps a degree of sunshine. So I'm not sure what to tell you what to wear that night. And then this afternoon, as we were rolling it out to the department leaders, no sooner had I finished kind of reviewing everything that I've said to you this evening, Dan emailed me and said, whoa, he said, Julie just sent me another email. Apparently there's going to be another announcement from the agency on Friday, which could change the playing field a third time. So we are not sending out letter 2.0 to the families yet until the end of this week. Needless to say, things are constantly changing. We understand that. It does get frustrating. I'm not going to lie to you. Because we're in the business of trying to fix things that other people give us to fix.
Yeah, it's, I think yesterday afternoon when we got the update basically saying that all of our plans weren't going to work, It was a low point, I think, for all of us. You know, I've just been so proud of the commitment at NVU to try and do something that will help those seniors feel really good about the closure of their high school experience. And I have to tell you, Dan French really got that. I had to say, look, my high school principal has worked so hard to get feedback from those seniors. What are the most important aspects of your senior year that will mean the most to you? And one by one, we take them away. And it's just been so hard for the kids, and to see the principals try so hard to make it happen for them. And what they really seemed to want was the ability to be on that stage. So we really want to try and do that for them. I think we're going to have tents. We're going to have 2 days, have kids come by appointment in time slots. And if the guidance changes a little bit, it might have to do with how many people we can have come during those time slots. You know, parents can't get out of the car, but they can be right there with the windows open, watching what happens. It's a really challenging time, and we want to do everything we can for our graduates. I will say the Rotary is making banners for all the Franklin County High School graduates. And I heard, I think Reg is going to be getting it at the Village and figure out with Jay where it should hang. But I think that's a really nice thing for the community to do.
On graduation, I received, or Terry actually received, an email from a former board member, Jay Cummings, and she forwarded it on to me. Giving us some suggestions on how to do graduation and whatnot. I'm not going to bother to read it because unfortunately most of his ideas are not allowed via the guidance from the state. I did pass it on to Julie and whatnot to see if we could use any of them. I'm sure Jay has already heard version 1.0. Have the parents have been made aware that there's another version coming out? I know you haven't released the letter yet because you're waiting for final guidance, but has there been like a warning just saying the first plan isn't going to work anymore?
No. We haven't had time to digest our meeting from this morning before the information of this afternoon.
Right.
As Julie indicated, it is going to be coming out through the governor's press conference on Friday, so I think we're just going to wait. Right now, we'll just field questions as they come to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a couple of ideas about how to get numbers of students who actually want to participate in this alternative graduation. Hopefully have an opportunity for students who were going to give speeches, should there have been a live typical graduation, do something there. Hopefully we'll be able to use Facebook and stream things for family members to see. So the team's been very creative.
Would it be helpful in the meantime to put something out on social media just saying like our plans have unfortunately changed, keep an eye out for 2.0?
I think at this point, Megan, I would rather wait.
Okay.
Only because it seems like every time we put something out, we're having to print a retraction.
Sure.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm not really sure that it's ever going to stop changing.
I just got two questions, Jay.
Yep.
They would get their cap and gowns no matter what they're going to be able to do. They'll be able to wear their cap and gowns for it.
That's correct.
And the other is because the parents won't be able to take pictures, probably get as good shots as they want. Is there going to be like a video camera, a stand-up tripod, maybe recording this that you can put on the MVU website so families can?
This is where I get to turn my knowledge technology over to Dan. So Dan, you pick up this in terms of how we're hoping to potentially broadcast this or make it available for broadcast.
Jen, as soon as I heard the question, I knew it was headed my way. We will stream it through Facebook Live for everybody. So we are going to set that up to stream it. Jay and I have a meeting with Aaron Garso tomorrow around that and what that'll take, but we are going to stream that. Essentially what we're looking at out front is about a 40-foot long tent, but we're looking at a stage that may be only 18 feet long. On the other side of that, down at the far side, it sounds like we may be able to put like almost a curtain up or a flap up. And on the other side of that, Cold Hollow Photography will be taking photos in your portrait. The idea is to do it on a green screen, and he will then put it all together and kind of mash it all together, Photoshop it all together as a senior photo. That's the idea as of right now. I talked to Sean earlier today about that. Paul Gregoire was checking on tent sizes today. So we're so far 2.0. This is where we're headed in the direction we're going. Yeah.
Thank you. I just think that the memories are important for the families, and having something like that is good.
Chris?
Yeah, originally we were looking at having the whole thing video recorded and then splicing it all together. So having some of the seniors come in and give the senior gift and kind of record that, and then have somebody kind of splice it all together. We're still working out the details for that. Not saying it's off the table, just we're trying to actually, have the guest speaker, have Mark Ledoux come in and speak, maybe even there, and then kind of splice it all together. So again, we're still just trying to put it all together, but that's kind of the idea we've got right now. And then hopefully somebody can put it all together, put it on YouTube, and so everybody can kind of just watch it from there.
Thank you.
Chris?
Don.
Yes, I'd just like to weigh in on this and tell Jay and Julie and Dan and everybody else involved that I'm really pleased the way they're approaching this. I like Jay's statement that we're going to wait until Friday and see what the governor has to say. But in my opinion, observing the Agency of Ed, how it's operating in many areas, I would hope after Friday and we get a plan that we stick with the plan. And if Secretary French wants to come up there that night and shut us down, that's his option. But right now, I think the only thing I can say about what's coming out of the Agency Ed is called chaos and disarray. So if you work through with the governor on Friday, I would encourage you to put the plan together and we'll stick with it and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I have to say that it was very nice for Dan to be able to call me within half an hour and talk through it with me. I pushed back on a couple of areas and said, look, this is not, I understand that what the Agency of Ed is doing is in response to what the health department says we have to do. A lot of people here, oh, we can have group sizes of less than 10. So what's the big deal? And they just casually mentioned following health and safety protocols. Those health and safety protocols are huge and involve taking everyone's temperature and sanitizing everything. And to a degree that an event like this, it would just become impossible to do inside. But I do have his permission and authority, even if there's a change, unless there's a change that restricts things, which I don't expect, we definitely have approval to do it outside with what we've discussed today. So unless there's a huge change, we want to move forward with this plan.
Chris, may I say something?
Yes.
So I think, yes, I think it's important that we do something for our seniors. Absolutely. I think the thought that we take what we hear on Friday, we go with that is a good one. I would caution against saying we're going to make a plan and we're going to stick with it. And if they want us to change it, then they can come up here and make us. I just don't think that's very prudent. I absolutely can understand and have been experiencing, how we can do things for grads, and we're doing what we can based on the most up-to-date health information and health guidelines. And I just want to make sure that that is the number one priority. There are options for non-in-person events. at St. Mike's where I work, we just had a virtual graduation that was very, very successful. No, it is not the same, but these are not normal times. So certainly I support doing what we can to move forward and do an in-person if that is safe, but also just keeping in mind that I wholeheartedly say that if a change comes after Friday, then we need to abide by that change.
Oh, absolutely understood. We at all times, we were just having this conversation. I wish I could remember who I was speaking with. We talk all day long, don't we, administrators? That's all we do, is talk to people. People don't understand the parameters around which, we're not making a ton of decisions. We're not deciding whether schools open or closed. We're not deciding whether we can do many things. We're being told by the Agency of Ed and by the Department of Health the parameters around which we function. And that's tricky because it's health. So those health department guidelines do change. I want to transition into summer because I know that's another big question people have, unless people have other questions about graduation, because summer is even more dicey.
I actually do have a quick question about graduation. I don't need a detailed answer. I know Joyce had mentioned that she was planning on doing some sort of graduation for her sixth graders. I was just curious if there's a plan in Swanton and Highgate. I don't need to know what the plan is. I was just curious if you're working on one or not. Yep, Dina says yep. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
And again, all of those teams working on those are using the health department guidelines. So should there be any changes significantly on Friday, the elementary principals will be attending to those as well.
Can I ask one more question about graduation? Sorry. So the email and the video I got, Dan and Jay, is that eighth graders you're not doing a graduation for eighth graders, correct? I just wanted to clarify that.
That is correct. We are not going to be doing the eighth grade celebration this year.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about graduation? I'm not seeing any, so I guess we can move on to the summer plan.
So we have had guidance from the Department of Health around what childcare, summer camps, and summer programming can look like. And we have had multiple meetings. We had one just today around summer programming. The requirements will be very stringent for any in-person care. There will be pre-screening, there will be temperature checks. Everybody needs to have PPE, and the teachers will all need to have glass eyewear covering. So there's a whole process and staging of when any children arrive. There can be no commingling of children at any time. You can have groups of kids together in a cafeteria eating, on a playground together, in a hallway together, entering together. Essentially, and primarily if you think of the childcare arena, they talk about pods of children. So in a childcare setting, you would have a group of children and their adults that would be no larger than what they expected to be in June, which would be 25. And they would stay together all the time. There would be no traveling around. There would be no traveling of people in and out of the classroom. So there are also many more requirements. One of them is the requirements on busing transportation are extremely prohibitive for the bus company to do it, and cost-wise, it would more than triple our costs. And so we've been discussing what we can do in person, what we can do virtually, prioritizing those students. Some things that we do know is that the tutoring will be happening virtually. The attempt to have in-person We're going to prioritize those students for whom remote learning is not working, students with disabilities who are not engaging with the computer and that they really need a person. At the same time, some children have their own health needs and really cannot at this time be in person in any setting. So those are a lot of stresses on the school system, particularly on families, that we have to work through to have appropriate offerings. And right now we are only working with guidance coming from the Department of Health and the Child Development Center. We do not yet have guidance from the Agency of Education. That's forthcoming, but it is based on the guidance we're seeing already. Many of us have participated in webinars with Dr. Brina Holmes from the Office of Children with Special Health Needs, who's been doing these presentations on the health requirements to run programs. We have issues of staff being able to provide services in person. Summer is a time where teachers and support staff are not under contract. So it really is finding the right match for providing these services. So we have had probably 6+ hours of meetings on this, and people are now going to be working in small groups and then come back together and discuss our progress. So we're looking at special ed, we're looking at credit recovery, proficiency recovery, and we're looking at tutoring and intervention. So it looks right now like there will be we're also looking at Crossroads to see if we could do some small scale project for students. It would need to look a little bit different. We also have the fact that Highgate will be under construction. So we are not going to be able to use the Highgate campus for any summer programming anyway. So that also complicates this. Look, I have a cat for some reason. That complicates the space. So we have all those things to work out, but we're of course going to prioritize the kids who have the highest need for in-person and see what we can do there. And it will likely be a hybrid. And that's as much of an update as I can really give you at this point, because it's still in development.
Okay, any questions? Joanne?
So this is it's a summertime question. I'm not sure if it's on the same line where Julie was talking, but my curiosity is I think there's some students that are feeling 100% challenged during this, virtual time, new times. I'm just wondering, would there be anything in the summertime to continue their involvement for their students that are still looking for that challenge? Will there be programs available to the families and the students that they want to excel, they want to, continue to learn? It's just a thought. I'm not sure if that's anything that's looked at. I'm sure some kids probably wouldn't want me to ask that question, but I think we have a lot of really good kids that want to try hard, and they're always looking to challenge themselves. So
thank you for that, because of course we're always thinking in the summer, our primary focus are two things: kids who need more to keep up and kids who need a camp social kind of experience. Given this time, there have got to be opportunities. Clearly, they're going to be online kind of opportunities, but partnerships with schools that we could just share so that that information is available to families and parents. So I've made a note of that, and we'll see what we can do to get those extension of learning opportunities communicated.
Thank you. Jen?
Sorry, full questions tonight. Going beyond school, has there been any guidance as to fall? And I'm looking very far ahead, but I was just wondering if there was anything said, Julie. We know it's going to change.
Absolutely. It's superintendents met over several weeks to develop a list of timeline questions for the agency of ed and when we would like to know. We'd like to know information about contracts for staff. We'd like to know what the budget will be. We'd like to know all of these things. And summer being one, and what the fall will look like. And they were very thoughtful, and the agency thanked us for them and said, these are all very good. It makes a good framework, but we have very little control over what these timelines. Like I really practically should know what the fall's gonna look like June 1st so that we can, we can plan structurally for it. We can offer contracts to folks. We can assign people. There's no way that we will have the health department data and information to be sure. What we do know is that things will potentially look different, that we will likely have to still have some kind of social distancing involved. Without a vaccine, we should expect to have protocols for people entering the building. We may not be able to have kids move throughout the building. We may have in the high school, I said today, it could possibly be that kids go to a room and that's where they are for the day. And then their education is online, but they're in a room 6 feet apart from each other. So there are a lot of things that we don't know. What we do know is we have to stay sharp and planful with our remote learning, because if somebody becomes ill, a school has to close and respond. We don't know what that timeline would be. Across the world, there are different timelines for those situations. I was looking at an article today about that. If there is a flare as a state or in a region or a county, all the schools could shut down and we would move on a dime to remote learning again and then shift back to in-person learning. So we have to expect, until there is widespread access to a vaccine, we have to expect to be able to move back and forth between remote learning and some different form of in-person learning. I would be very surprised, Jen, if kids just showed up in school with their brand new school shoes on like they do every year, and where everything looks the same as last fall and the fall before. However, what that does look like, we're not sure yet.
And Julie, I'm sure that this has been considered, but for families who don't want to send their children back, is there going to be continued online learning for those families, whether they just don't want to, or if somebody in their family is immunocompromised, what that would look like for those?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. We've been asking that. I'm not sure what the answer is there. We do have an obligation to educate children from the age of 6 up. And there is an obligation to enroll children. However, it's the middle of a health crisis. At some point, the state of emergency will end, so some of that flexibility stops. There are options. I know that the homeschool office of the Agency of Ed has been very busy. So that is always an option. If there is a health reason, then I think that becomes a whole separate conversation. Given that we don't know what the staffing needs will look like, what the assignments will look like, what in-person learning will look like, we could have all kinds of options. There could be some teachers themselves who are in a category that have to work remotely. Maybe those teachers work with kids who have to work remotely as well. We have no idea, but it is all on the table at this point.
Peter.
With everything I'm hearing, it sounds like I don't see where we'll have any athletics until we have a cure, from the way it sounds, all the precautions that they're taking. I mean, there's no sports out there that aren't on contact or in close contact with even cross-country running. When they take off, I mean, that's a huge pack. So I'm just wondering if you've heard anything or if there's any guidance on that.
We certainly have. It took a long time for the VPA to cancel spring sports. We do not have information definitively on fall sports yet. I know we've certainly had plenty of private organizations reach out to us and other superintendents about use of fields. We're holding on all of that. One, because it's not allowed right now. But two, we don't know what our own students will need and what the capacity of the school will be. If we're able to have some kind of fall sports, what will the use of practice fields look like if kids have to be spread out more? I don't know. And Jay, I don't know if your involvement with the BPA, or Dan, if you have any other insights.
I guess I could quickly say that Peter's right, and you're right as well. The VPA, tried to hang on to the spring season as long as they could before ending it on the end of April. We've already begun looking ahead at the fall. The Vermont State Athletic Directors Association met again on Monday. Everybody's putting all kinds of contingency plans. To be perfectly honest, there's nothing that's guaranteed for this upcoming year. I think Julie hit it on the head when she said there's a vaccine out there. We're just all running in different directions, and it's going to be very difficult to put our student athletes along with anybody else's student athletes together for any meaningful competition.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add to that. I do know that tomorrow night, the Vermont Soccer Association, the VSA, is holding a meeting roughly 8 o'clock. My daughter's involved in a soccer program, and there's a meeting tomorrow night at 8 to say what the remainder of the season is going to look like. I know they're looking to push it out into summer, so I'm not sure what their guidelines are going to be. As far as school-wide athletics, like Jay said, there's I think we're just on hold.
As far as soccer goes, me and my son had the idea that you could set it up like foosball. They never touch each other.
That's all I have. That's all I have, Chris.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we can move on to other business. First up is new hires information.
So you have your table in the folder. I just put it in this evening. I didn't have the right updated version. I have been meeting with new teachers. I think Swanton is pretty much filled except for a long-term sub. I think they still have open. We have, I met with a new early childhood special educator. A new early childhood classroom teacher for Highgate, who's a veteran and really wonderful. So we're excited to have her join us. Her name's April. We have some transfers that are happening. We have a high school math teacher, Robin, who's coming to us from Georgia. We had a transfer of someone becoming a reading interventionist, so we still have that middle school English language arts position that she leaves vacant, and that's Molly Moore, who will be moving into the interventionist position. We still have a number of, I believe, 3 special ed positions at MVU that need to be filled. And at least 1 more math position at the high school, it may be 2. Dan, do you have that update? It's one. So one is good.
We have one interview coming up this Friday at 3. We have 7th grade ELA tomorrow at 10, 11, and 12. We finally wrapped up phys ed today. So Julie, that name will be coming on to you soon.
Great. And I am having wonderful conversations with all these new teachers, and they're, really prepared to, some of them come to Vermont. It's been interesting to hear those that are teaching, in other schools. It's been interesting to hear what that experience has been in Massachusetts or Georgia or plenty of other places. So they are excited to come here and hope that they get to meet their students in person in the fall. So that's our new hires.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the support staff contracts update, which we probably have a finding for executive session.
Yep, we have this and next the support staff side letter. Really just go both hand in hand. And we just want to have a conversation in executive session about the issuing of those contracts and the conversations that we've been having with the association about the issuing of contracts for support staff.
Okay. And then last up, future meeting dates. Our next meeting is to be held June 2nd, 6:30. Now, it's my understanding by June 2nd, we could, if we wanted to, start meeting, the board could meet in person, correct? Or do we have to?
It hasn't been announced yet. We may get that announcement at the Friday press conference. The big reveals always seem to happen on Fridays.
Yeah.
We may be able to have the board meet. I wouldn't want there to be, a ton of people coming into a meeting. We would need to have social distance. Some people may not feel comfortable. We may want to have some people online and some people in person. Whatever. We're actually getting pretty good at this, so I hate to almost go back. But we will likely have more options for the June.
So I guess at this point, we'll keep it as a virtual meeting. We'll wait till the Friday's announcement. If it changes what we can do, I'll send out an email to the board members and kind of get a straw poll of what we want to do moving forward. So as of right now, our next meeting is June 2nd, 6:30 to be held virtually.
Great.
The next thing up is executive session, unless somebody else has something they would like to add.
Chris?
Don.
Before we go to executive session, we had talked earlier, I think maybe April 1st, a meeting, getting a financial update. Is that on the agenda for our first meeting in June to let the board see where we may be over and where we may have saved some money?
Yeah, usually our first meeting of the month, we usually always have financial updates and check warrants on the first meeting of the month.
Right. But I think, well, I guess what I'm asking, and I know that's the first of the month, but in addition to that, we probably should take a little more time and get the bigger view of where we might end up June 30.
Okay.
That was my plan, Don.
Good. I thought probably, but I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed something.
Okay.
Chris, to follow up on the budget, I know the governor had said something about revoting school district budgets. I know he's got some pushback. Any updates on that?
Well, actually, it was funny you mentioned that. We were talking about that this morning, and it was a suggestion he made, but I don't think there was any follow through with it because in the long run, it's going to cost a lot more money if we have to go and revote on all these budgets. So if we're trying to save money, that's probably not a very practical way of going about it.
There didn't seem to be interest in the House either. Laura?
I have not heard anything about it going anything past his comment.
Chris, I was in a meeting today, a conference call today with VSBA, and a lot is happening, but the word was that I think until we get a real handle on what federal money might be able to be used for what education purposes, probably not a whole lot is going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sounding, I was in a VASBO meeting, a virtual VASBO meeting on Friday, and it's definitely sounding like that CARES Act funding and a lot of the response monies are not going to be received this fiscal year. They're actually not even sure we'll be able to book them as receivable as far as auditors are concerned, as a receivable for this year, and be able to book them back. So there's a lot to be determined for sure.
Okay. Unless there's any more questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to talk contract.
And then we're going to invite in Julie and Laura.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Peter's the first, second.
I'll second that.
Terry's the second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of going to executive session, signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Looks like it's 9-0. Okay, we came out of executive session at 8:12. I would entertain a motion to allow the board chair or vice chair to sign the side letter. Peter's the first. Terry's the second. All those in favor of allowing the board chair or vice chair to sign the side letter, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Was that opposed, Steve, or for? Can't hear you. Are you for allowing the chair to sign the side letter? Okay, there we go. The motion carries 9-0. I love technology. I guess at this point, unless somebody else has something, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would just like to add one thing before we adjourn, and that is there's been a lot of people saying the administrators, the teachers, everybody has done a really good job. I just want to say something about our superintendent and what a dynamite job she's been doing too. It makes it so much easier to be on the board.
Right.
And our chair too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary.
That's true.
Maybe someday we'll have a really boring, straightforward school year.
Yeah. Welcome to being superintendent up here.
What fun would that be, Julie?
I don't know. We take up a hobby or something. No, it's been great, and it is really, honestly, a terrific team to work through these crazy times with. So, really smart people you have working for you.
Okay, so at this point, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Terry is a first. Second. Devin's a second. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:15, signify by saying aye or raise your hand. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.